Iran has issued its most direct threat yet to the United States amid its crackdown on anti-government protests. In an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal last night, Iran's foreign minister wrote this: "Our powerful armed forces have no qualms about firing back with everything we have if we come under renewed attack. An all-out confrontation will certainly be ferocious and drag on far, far longer than the fantasy timelines that Israel and its proxies are trying to peddle to the White House. It will certainly engulf the wider region and have an impact on ordinary people around the globe." That comes as a U.S.-based human rights activist news agency estimates at least 4,500 people have died during the protests, while Iranian state TV says it estimates just over 3,100 people have been killed. Arsalan Kahnemuyipour is an Iranian-Canadian human rights activist and professor of linguistics at the University of Toronto, Mississauga. Arsalan, it's good to see you again. Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you for having me, David.
There's a few things we're going to cover, but I'd like to start with the latest information we're hearing out of Iran. The regime is saying 3,100 people were killed in the protests, while we have a much higher number from the human rights activist news agency that puts it closer to 4,500. It's difficult to have a clear sense, obviously, with all the restrictions. What is your sense of what the truth is when it comes to the fatalities in this moment in your home country?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for that question. I think the scale is much higher than that. These numbers are based on names that people have been the human rights agencies have been able to identify. Even the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic, Khamenei, talked about thousands. People are now talking about minimum 12,000. We are also hearing numbers like 20,000, and that's based on body counts. Estimates of body counts in different cities. We're talking about maybe tens of locations, different cities where these massacres have happened. And you put those numbers together, unfortunately, we might be looking at it even over 20,000, possibly even more.
There was some reporting we saw from news agencies citing sources with those numbers. So the 4,500 that we have from the Human Rights Activist News Agency, these would be confirmed, verified casualties, yes, is what you're saying in names. And then when you have the unverified, it could be orders of magnitude much higher than that, is your understanding.
Yes. Yeah. I think even for the Islamic Republic, which has a record of violence against civilians, this is an unprecedented scale of killing. Well,
when the regime puts out a number more than 3,000, and given the way they are with information, it does immediately suggest it is factors higher. And we've seen in their pronouncements, since they're doubling down on the way all of this was handled, with the Iranian foreign minister going as far as to say that President Trump's promise to act against Iran if it kills more people, that simply incited more violence among protesters. What do you make of that regime, that narrative, the regime is putting out into the world?
Yeah, this is obviously a self-serving narrative for the Islamic Republic. It's not uncommon for totalitarian regimes to have these kinds of narratives floating around. The reality is there's a chance that people may have been motivated for going out because they thought there would be support, which turned out to be a hollow promise from President Trump. But the fact that there was any kind of foreign interference in terms of instigating the protests or killing the people, this is totally made up.
Do you think the protests have largely been quelled? Because this was building for a while. It started because of economic concerns and broadened out. But then the fierceness and the violence of the crackdown escalated from there. Do you think the regime has successfully managed to stop this movement at this particular point, at least for now?
At this point, it looks like it. I mean, obviously, the massive crackdown has forced people to go in their homes. We have reports of, some security forces even entering people's homes, at least some people's homes. These are eyewitness reports. Checking bodies, asking young people to take off their clothes to check if they've been injured by the pellet gun bullets, which happened in the first couple of days before they started shooting at people using machine guns, and then arresting them. But overall, I think there's a lull in the whole city. people are mourning the deaths of their loved ones. We're talking about thousands of deaths in a country of 90 million. So everyone, almost everyone, knows someone who is either dead, injured, or arrested.
Yeah, the images that did get out of the fields of body bags in public spaces was it was jarring. And look, Arsalan, you are one of hundreds of Iranian Canadians that we've heard from and that I've personally heard from with concerns over an interview we did on the show last week with the Iranian Canadian Congress. And you criticized that interview for falling short of standards and really allowing a platform for the narrative of the Iranian regime. And look, I'm not going to argue with you. Like, I expected an interview on that day, much like the one we are having here, talking about the regime cruelty and support for the protesters, and that's not what we delivered. And we fell short as a team, and I'm sorry about that. And I fell short as a host, because I'm ultimately responsible for what happened. So this was it was a live interview, and it did not go as I expected, and I didn't react it as I would have hoped I would. So I do want to apologize to you for that, because I know this is a source of great consternation and some hurt, and that was not our intention, and I'm sorry that happened, and I'm glad you're here to sort of speak about it. So what did you want to say about that particular segment? Because I'm not defending it and not making excuses. I want to make it right.
Thank you very much, David. I really appreciate your honesty, and apologies accepted. But I have to say, when that news episode, that episode came out, I was inundated with messages. I don't think I've ever had as many messages from community members, all asking about what can be done. So I was one of hundreds of people who signed this letter that was sent to you, which you kindly responded to very quickly. Basically objecting to the narrative that was, broadcast on your program, which essentially copied the narrative coming from the Islamic Republic. Yes, I mean, all of the different pieces of that narrative can be debunked. The reality is that this was large-scale protest. We're talking about millions of Iranians coming to the streets to basically to demand the end of the Islamic Republic. That's what it comes down to. In the end, it might have started because of economic crisis. It might have, been various reasons. But we have had protests in Iran, a chain of protests starting at least going back to 2009, even before that. So this is a continuation of those protests, and it has come to the point that the strong majority of the population felt that they could go on the streets and in millions and demand this end to the Islamic Republic. And to suggest that this was instigated by Israel or foreign forces is obviously offensive to the Iranian Canadian community.
Look, I was surprised by some of the things that were said, and I quite honestly did not know what to do in that moment, and that was my failure, and that's where that went wrong. But help me understand something here, Arsalan, and this is not, I'm not asking this to make myself feel better or look better, but the Iranian Canadian Congress, and I've since learned how many people in the diaspora looks at this particular organization. They had standing at the foreign interference inquiry. I've seen them quoted in other media. How do they get standing at something like a foreign interference inquiry when you and so many others voice concern that essentially this organization supports the positions of the Iranian regime in practice and in word?
Yes, so that's a great question. Maybe it would require a full program to discuss.
Fair.
But I can tell you that obviously, if anybody Googles the Iranian Canadian community, that's the first name that comes up. They are called the Iranian Canadian Congress, so it's not a surprise that they're invited. But this is an organization of 300 members, and we're talking about a community of 300,000 people. The fact of the matter is people distrust the organization, so they don't want to become members to try to change it because they don't believe there's going to be a fair election. There are lots of issues. And of course, our community also has to take responsibility for still allowing this for organization to go on. But the reality is, if you place them in the context of what they have done over the past 5-6 years and all the statements, it becomes clear the line of logic that they're following. I'm not suggesting that they're, hired by the Islamic Republic. Absolutely not. They're people that probably politically believe in and have a particular political affiliation that makes them want to believe these kinds of stories. And we hear these stories from some individuals, in the West as well. So it's not like they don't exist at all, but they're within the Iranian Canadian community. They're definitely, this is a fringe, type of, ideology. They are probably represent less than 0.5% of the Iranian Canadian community population.
Well, Arsalan, again, my apologies, and please, my reassurance. The intention was to do an interview about the struggle and the oppression, and obviously it didn't go that way. But thank you for reaching out and educating on this, and thank you for your time today. That's Arsalan Kahnemuyipour. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.